Hey, what's up? It's been a while since our last video, and if you've been following me ever since, you know that this is like the 8th or the 9th video since our previous video. And we've been talking about building a SOC analyst lab on the cloud. In this case, we've chosen to use VULTR, like we said, because VULTR has given us a $300 credit to play with. But if you're quite conversant or familiar with Microsoft Azure or maybe AWS, please feel free to do with that. Now, imagine you having 100 or even 1,000 endpoints in your organization, and each time there is an update or maybe a security patch, you've had to go onto each of these endpoints to start to install all of these things one after the other. That sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, today we're going to be diving deeper into a game changer, which is a tool called the Fleet Server, and when combined with the Elastic agent in the Elk stack, this dynamic duo is what you need to make your life a whole lot easier when it comes to things like this. Picture this. You're a SOC analyst and your dashboard looks like this, alerts everywhere, system needing updates, and you're actually drowning in tasks. But what if you could manage all this from a single pane of glass? Interesting, right? This is where the Fleet Server comes into play. The Fleet Server is like a command center for all your Elastic agents. Instead of running around updating each endpoint, the Fleet Server allows you to manage everything centrally from one dashboard. It can help you deploy updates, manage configuration, and monitor your agents, all from one spot. It's just like having a superpower in your cybersecurity toolkit. Here is how it works. You install Elastic agents on the endpoints you wish to monitor. These agents you've installed collect telemetry and security event log, sending all these details back to your Fleet Server. From there, it flows into the Kibana dashboard, giving you real-time insight into your network health and security health as well. But wait, there's more. With this setup, you're not just collecting data, you're essentially empowering your SOC analyst to detect any indicator of compromise, which is what is usually referred to as IOC in the cybersecurity domain. It includes those simple signs that something is definitely amiss. And the Elastic agent itself, which you've installed on your end devices, they do have some built-in endpoint protection too, which can help you resolve some of these queries on its own automatically before it becomes an issue in your organization. Putting together the Fleet Server, the Elastic agent, and the SIEM dashboard, which is the Elk stack in this case, Elastic, Logstash, and Kibana. If you put all this together, it empowers your SOC analyst to do even better. This is where it gets more interesting. Now, the SOC analyst can investigate events, detect anomalies, and proactively stop any threat before it even escalates. So if you're ready to streamline your operations and enhance your security posture, please do well to stick around. We're about to set up the Fleet Server and deploy the Elastic agent in this lab, which will transform the way you manage your network and give you more insight and understanding of what the SOC analyst does on a day-to-day basis. So if you're ready to get your hands a bit dirty, let's get right into it. So to create a Fleet Server, I'll first of all need to log on to my VULTR dashboard, and you should be logging at where you are right now, and then head on to deploy new server, and we'll leave this as it is. Select your location and then move on to the operating system, which is 22.04, in this case Ubuntu. I'll select that one and just leave this as it is. 4 GB of RAM and 1 virtual CPU, 30 GB of storage, and that costs about $30 per month. That's fine, we can leave it as it is. And remember to always deselect auto backup, because that's going to cost some money, and we disable IPv6 because we're using IPv4 potentially. Make sure to select VPC 2.0 like we've always been doing, and this is where you have to make sure it is on the lab environment we've created for the VPC 2.0. As you can see, it's assigned an IP address for us automatically from the range, which is the .4 IP address. And let's just leave the SSH keys as it is, and I'll leave the firewall group just as it is for now. Then what I'm going to do next is to put a name to it. I'll call it SOC Lab. I'll call it Fleet Server and deploy. So it's currently installing, and while that installation is going on, I'll quickly log on to our ELK dashboard, which is the Elasticsearch dashboard. And to do that, I'll use the public IP address 108 and 5601. It's going to be different in your case, but just use that and the 5601 port number. And this is it. We're in our dashboard. What you need to do next is to head on to this hamburger sign and scroll down to your management location. On that management, select fleet, add fleet server. You could use quick start or you could use advanced. For the purpose of this lab, we'll just leave it at quick start. And for advanced, this is where you get to do some more in-depth security settings, such as digital signature, assigning your digital certificates, and some other important configuration. But for this purpose of this lab, we're not going to go that deep. But quick start is just good enough for you to get the experience and the examples that you need. So I will quickly give it a name. SOC lab. Right, SOC lab fleet server. And for the URL, we'll need the IP address of the virtual machine that's been configured on VULTR. So I'll check if that's running. It's currently running. I'll open that quickly, and this is my IP address. I'm going to copy this one and head back here to type that in, but then I'll need to give it a URL, http:// and I'll put the IP address right here. Remember, the default port address is 8220. We're going to be doing some setup to allow this IP address to connect, because without this, we might run into some severe errors, which we might spend longer time configuring. So it's important that you read some of these side notes to be able to know when some things are going wrong, right? So I'm going to generate this fleet server. So it must be a URL. So I need to put S onto this one and generate that. So while that's generating, I'll come on here to see if I can connect to this server. So right now, I think it's finished. So it's asking to log in. Like usual, I would always use our PowerShell to log in. I'll close this one and see what's going on here. Right now, the fleet server policy has been created, and we can install it this way on step 2, which is install the fleet server to a centralized host. The first one is to get started with the fleet server, which is what we've done. We've put the IP address of our virtual machine. The next step, which is step 2, is to install the fleet server to a centralized host. And for that, we are doing that in a Linux environment, not any of these ones, but Linux environment, because we've spin up a Linux server on the cloud. So make sure Linux environment is selected, and then we'll copy this code. Just press this button right here. This code is actually copied, and we're going to put that onto the virtual machine for the fleet server, which is Linux operating system, the Linux environment we've created. So we need to do that one before it can proceed on to step 3, and then it will confirm that the fleet server has established a connection. So there's now an agent connection already for the fleet server. So I would head back here and then go open up my PowerShell and connect into it like we normally do. So before I will do any of this, I need to make sure that the firewall rules is allowing the connections that we need for this particular fleet server. So with this fleet IP address, I'm going to create a new firewall rule that is going to allow some ports to connect actually to that server. So to do that, I'll head on to network and I'll come back to firewall. So under firewall, you select the rules that we want to edit. I'll click this one, then head back here and select TCP connection, and I'll let the same port range just like we've done before, 65535, and I'll limit that IP address to a custom IP address, which is going to be the IP address for the fleet server like we've already said. And then I'm going to add this up. Right, so we have this added already, and I'll head back to my compute environment and open up my fleet server, stay in that environment and ready. So what I'm going to do next is to allow the same configuration in my Elasticsearch, which is the ELK servers, right? So I'll come back to the ELK and get the IP address and connect to that one. Right, I'm going to connect to my ELK server and allow port number 9200 because that's what the fleet server would listen, the Elasticsearch would listen on. It's going to listen on the port 9200. So to do that, I'll create another instance for my PowerShell. I have one running here. I'll just use this one for now, and I will make this bigger. Now I'm going to connect to the ELK server like we've already done before. So what I'm going to do now is to make that connection. It's going to be SSH root at this IP address, and that's my ELK, and I need to come back to the server and copy the IP address and enter it right here. It's not going to display like we already know, and we're in that server. I'll clear, and we're in that server. And then the next thing I need to do is to navigate to the user folder, the share bin. So once I'm in that folder, now I need to allow that port number to flow. So what I need to do is to UFW allow 9200, and that rule has been added. So I'll keep this one down. Now what I'm going to do next is to open up the new server that we've configured, which is the fleet server. In this case, I'm going to log on to that from my console, which is this one, the fleet server. I'm going to log on to that and update our repository, and then copy this code from the Elastic agent, the fleet server agent. I'm going to copy this fleet server code and then input that in the new fleet server we've created on the cloud. So to be able to do that, I first of all need to sign on, to log on via my SSH, like we already know how to do. So I'm signing up here. I'm going to log into that SSH root at the IP address for that machine is this one, and I'll copy that and put it here. And it's asking for a fingerprint. I'm going to type yes, and then it's asking for the password. Password is right here. Copy that password and paste it over here. It's not going to display like we already know, and that's now entered. So I'm going to clear the screen and update my repository, and to do that, I'm going to do apt get update and apt get upgrade -y. Right now the update is completed. So what we need to do right now, since the update is completed for our fleet server, what we need to do is to copy the code that we got from the Elasticsearch agent dashboard, the fleet server. What we need to do now is copy that and then paste it on here on our SSH instance, because the connection we've made. So what we need to do is first of all add on to that location, clear this screen, and then I'll paste the code right here. And then I'll say yes to continue. I was trying to get that enrollment done. If you take a look underneath here, it's still rolling this. And as you can see, it said install fleet server to centralize those completed, because I've copied and pasted this code. And the next thing is fleet server connected. You can now continue enrolling agents with fleet. So it means that connection has been established and this server has been added already. So let's see what's here, if it's completed. So it says the agent has been successfully installed. Right, so we need to continue the enrollment. Click this and it's asking for a policy. On there we'll put the name. I'll say SOC Lab Windows policy. And make sure the collect system logs and metric is selected, and I'll click create. let's see what we have here. I don't think we need any of that. Right. We'll create policy. So when that's done, you'll see it's saying that you need root privilege is required. So it means whatever agent we're going to be installing this, we need to have access to a root privilege. So in our case, we want to be installing that on our Windows server, and that means we need to have some administrative rights to have to that server, which we already do. On Windows is just by default. So however, just open as administrative right as well. But what we need to do now is come here and click on Windows, then copy this code. So now that we have this code in our hands, we now need to head back onto VULTR and put this code on our PowerShell instance, or not PowerShell, the PowerShell instance running on that Windows server in our virtual machine on the cloud. So what that means is I'll have to come back to VULTR and go back to what we have, all the servers that we have, and head back to Windows and try to start that up again. Yeah, so first of all, try to restart the server. All right, so the server is now running. So I'll need to head on here, select the server. This is my IP address and everything, the login details. So I'll try to go view in the console and get on here. So paste this code again, the password again, so I copy that code and the password, then we click on this to Control Alternate Delete, and then select the clipboard and paste the password that we've copied, put that in and enter. Yeah, should be in our Windows environment already. Right now, what we need to do is to go on to PowerShell and open as administrator, even though we have the administrative rights, because that's what Windows does automatically. That's by default. So I'll first of all come here and try to search for PowerShell, and then I'll open PowerShell. I'll run that as administrator, and over here is where I'm going to put my code. So I'll go back to my Elastic agent, copy the code again, come back to my Windows environment and try to paste that code in. You wouldn't be able to paste it directly. So first you need to come over here and click this button, open up the clipboard, put it there, paste, and click paste. That's when it's going to run. Oh, you can see it's putting some code over there, and then put this back there where it is. So while this code is running, we could just go back here and make a quick settings for it, and I can see some errors already. Right, so it says the enrollment token. So I'll come back here and make some changes. Yeah, for this fleet server, I'll come over here and make some changes to the settings. I'll edit this one, change this port address to 8220, which is the default IP address I told you to note from the beginning, and then save and apply settings, save and deploy. This is done because the fleet listens on port 8220 by default, and that's what it's defaulted to, but the connection here was 443. We had to amend that and do some modification, so it's reflecting 8220. So now I would change this. I'll change this to 8220. That's for our URL, and I'll hit enter again. Here, hit enter, and then say yes to continue. So we've got some errors here. Let's go back and troubleshoot to find out what the problem is. I think, right, so failed to enroll, failed to execute request to fleet server, and it's connecting via the 443 instead of 8220 like we said. So I'm going to edit that code that we entered and change that to 443 to 8220. So go back here and change this to 8220 so it can connect to the fleet server, and I'll say yes again. We also have another error here. Obviously, we have to go back and troubleshoot what that is. And first error was saying failed to execute request server, and this connect attempt fail, not properly respond after a period of time. So to troubleshoot, I'll head back to the fleet server and allow the 8220 port address. Say UF. First of all, clear these out. And then I'll say UFW allow 8220. That's allowed. Come back here and test it again. Yes, just press arrow, the top arrow button, and to go up again. Good. Right now that we've allowed that traffic to go through the port 8220, what we need to do next is to give it a signed certificate, because right now it's saying we have a signed certificate, an unknown signed certificate. If you look at the error code from here, so it's talking about X509 certificate error. So we could bypass that. But if you're in a real work environment, you will need to go through the advanced mode instead of through the get started, the quick startup process that we followed. You could go through the advanced mode and do the proper configuration and generate the certificate yourself and sign it yourself. But for the purpose of this lab, we won't be going that route. There are other videos that we could make for that purpose, but for now we'll bypass this rule, this self-signed certificate, and then move on. And I'll call back the code, which is this one, and I'll put space and dash insecure there. And hit enter. Confirm yes to install. And now the agent has been successfully installed. So what we can do is to head back onto our Elasticsearch dashboard and go back to Discover. Under Discover, we can find some history already recorded and captured from our Windows server already. So I'll go back to Manage and see if that's already been right. So you can see the SOC lab win GOKWATA host is now recorded here. So we can see that's already here. It means it can now collect telemetries and analysis or analytics from the logs, the servers from that Windows environment. To see, you can just come back to Discover and view from there.
So now you can capture logs and security events.
And just like that, we deployed our fleet server on VULTR, which is the cloud platform of our choice. We've installed Elastic Agent and set up our foundation for centralized monitoring. Our agents are now in place, forwarding real-time logs and events onto our SIEM dashboard, giving us complete visibility onto what's happening across our network. This is exactly the place where SOC analysts thrive, because it gives them the power to investigate and triage some of these issues before they even have the time to escalate. That way, your security posture will definitely be enhanced, because your SOC analysts have enough information and data collected fed into his dashboard, which he can be able to use to make the appropriate decision at the right time before anything becomes crucial or detrimental to your organization. But wait, we're not stopping here. In our next lab, we'll definitely trigger some action and see how this setup will perform, so that at the end of the day, we can collect this telemetry and make some sense out of that, analyze that, and see how these things really work. This is exactly where the fun begins. We're going to be turning raw log into actionable intelligence. So if you're serious about cybersecurity and want to master the tools that SOC analysts use and get the experience you need, do make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so that each time I post a new video, you can be notified of what we're doing, the progress of our lab, and you can get a chance to ask questions on the comment section, and I'll definitely do well to respond to that. So till then, see you next time.